All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. So hopefully on your screen right now you see the lovely State Department of Ed website. And so I just wanted to kind of start from the beginning as if I was getting into the Otis program for the very first time. And if you'll look, a little housekeeping first, if you look on your dashboard, you should see a place where you can raise your hand, as many of you did earlier, so that I know you can hear me or when I ask that question. There should also be a place for you to type questions in chat so that I would be able to see that if you have questions. And at the end, if it will be helpful, I can unmute individuals so that you can ask a question directly if that's easier for you. There are also 3 handouts with today's presentation, and those are in the webinar handouts, which should also be on that strip on the right-hand side that you can see your information. So as far as I can tell, I think that everybody is able to hear and we're able to get started. So we will do that in just 2 seconds. It looks like one person is having some trouble, so I will be right back. All right. So on your right hand or on your screen, you should see the State Department of Ed website. If you look at the handouts, one of them is going to be a one-page cheat sheet. I love one-page cheat sheets. And what it'll do is give you the step-by-step instructions. So it starts at the top. Number 1, go to www.sde.idaho.gov. And so if you do that, this is what you will see. Then if you're following along on the handout, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see that there's a blue bar that has a lot of really important information, and that's where you're going to go to get into Otis. So you're going to go to where it says ISEE, I-S-E-E, and once you go to that, it will take you to the application. So I'm assuming that most of you are just watching, not necessarily actually doing it, but later when you're watching this, if you want to, from the recording, you may want to just kind of follow along and go click on this at the same time. So I go to the IC, and I go to the IC portal, which is up here in the top. It's kind of the big, red letters saying this is the important thing, and I'm going to click on that. And that will take me to the portal, and I've already signed in before. If I was a new person signing in for the very first time, there would be an intermediate screen that asks me down at the bottom. And so if you're looking on the directions sheet, on the bottom of the page, there is a drop-down menu. And on that drop-down menu, you would select Other or your district if your district happens to be named there. And you would click Continue to Login, and that would bring you to this screen. And then you would put in your username and your password and sign in. So now I have come to the page where I can see all of the applications that I am authorized to use through the State Department website. So if you look on the right-hand side of my screen, I have my applications, and it shows what are the things I can see. So for a lot of you that do your state consolidated plan, you will see CFSGA, the site that we all know and love, where migrant plans and LEP and Title III plans all get turned in, budgets get done. There's quite a lot of information there. IDCI, I know many of you have heard us refer to how critically important it is that your information, contact information, and role be updated in IDCI, because that is how we pull our email list. And this gets us very current information, but only as current as people keep it. So every time I send out an email to the group, either liaisons, directors, or both, I will always put on there that this is a current, up-to-date list pulled as of today. And then you'll know that if it didn't come, didn't go to the right people, that the IDCI list needs updating. So I'm just going to plug that pretty much every time. But here's where I can see Otis. Otis stands for Online Tool for IT Support. I'm going to click on that, and then you see this nice little guy sitting here at his keyboard, and he looks pretty happy to see us. And I will tell you, I think This is one of the most user-friendly, easy programs ever. So when you get here on the left-hand side, you're going to see the actions that you can take. You can look at your tickets, which we'll do that after we create our ticket, but you can also create a ticket, which is what we're going to start with, and that's what you'll do when you have a student, which, as we know, there are just a few in MSys, just one or two, that might have a duplicate EDU ID, meaning they have more than one unique identifier, which then it's not very unique, I would suppose, and that needs correcting. Or you may have students with a wrong date of birth and a wrong spelling of your name. And I know there was some confusion in the past. People were hoping, and I think a lot of us hoped this, that the IC uploads that districts do every month to the State Department would automatically correct any misspelled names in the system. Excuse me. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Once a student has been created and is in the MSys system, which is the Migrant Student Information System for Idaho, once they are in there, their name will not be updated short of the process that we are about to go through right now, where somebody goes in and manually corrects it. So that's why this is so important for you to be able to have your clean data. So let's go ahead and go to create a ticket. And while we're doing that, I'm going to just draw your attention to the handout. One of the handouts talks about how you actually get to this point where you're creating a ticket, identifying the problem, verifying using the birth certificate, and verifying the information. And now we are down to the third part, the notify part. And so if you look at that handout, it will give you step-by-step instructions. We're not going into all of that information right now. We're just creating the ticket because this is more about the technology behind it. So when you look at that handout, if you have questions on that, feel free to contact me later. Okay, so let's go to create a ticket. And we are looking first at where it says requester. And with this is all new for districts to have access to Otis. And so what we've already discovered with a few brave souls that have gone in and tried creating their own ticket is that if your name does not populate this field, so where you look where it says name and it has my name, if you don't see your name in there, then you've got a problem and it's not going to work for you. So then at that point, what you would do is contact me. You would give me your EDU ID, your own as a staff member EDU ID, which some of you may not even realize you have one, but you do, which you can get from your technology director or IC manager that does your IC uploads, or you can give me your full name and date of birth, and they can use that to look up your EDU ID. At that point, they can map your login so that your name does populate this field. So if you don't see your name here, stop. You won't be able to do anything with Otis until we get that fixed. Contact me, and then I will help get that taken care of so that you'll be able to use this really easy system to get your data corrected quickly and I hope painlessly. So this is populated with my name, my phone number, and my email. And those are important because if, in the case that one of the tech support people needed to contact me personally, not through Otis, this would give them the information that they need. So now I'm going to go to where it says priority, and I have 5 choices. If you hover over the little, let's see if we can get this to work. Come on, wake up. Okay, well, I will just tell you that standard is, I believe, 3 to 5 business days. It is plenty fast. And even though our people in IT are not superhuman, it sometimes seems like it because they are very good about getting things done quickly. However, at the same time, I know they are also somewhat overloaded with projects and just trying to get everything done that they need to get done. So for these kinds of things, if it, these are not usually crisis mode, we could go with, click on standard. Oh, you saw it, how it finally kind of said what the time frame was for how long it would be. I forgot to point that out. But anyway, so we're going to click on standard. Then we're going to go over to type. And when you get here, there's going to be just a ton of choices. But if you look at your how to use Otis to correct MSys data handout, your handy-dandy one-page cheat sheet, you will see on there that I have a screenshot of this with it already filled out the way it needs to be filled out, so you can look there, or you can look on the step-by-step directions. And this one, knowing what to choose, we're already up to number 10. So it should be SDE website or web application, and that will always be your choice. Then when you click on that, it's going to give you two more choices. So you're going to go to Action/Issue and select the drop-down menu. And what you're asking for them to do is a data fix. So you're going to click on that. And then you will also see that you have a category down below. When you go to category, you are going to have to scroll down below kind of the where it starts out to be able to see Mss M6. So if you, at a later time are watching this recording, and you might want to make sure that you get all of the top part done correctly, maybe pause and then come back and we can go from there. So that is how I'm going to set up what kind of a ticket I'm turning in. So now I'm actually, and this is going to be the same every single time. So now I'm down to the point where I actually am going to write in what it is I need to be fixed. So when I go here, I'm going to have, and we're going to actually create this ticket for today. It will not be a real ticket that they will have to do anything with, but I want you to see the whole process. So what I'm asking for is an Mss name correction. And what you'll notice is you can only use 50 characters. If you can be really brief here, it's actually super helpful. So some of your examples might be Mss date of birth correction, Mss duplicate EDU ID, those, or Mss wrong QAD. I've seen those a few times. Actually, no, we're not going to do the wrong QAD. That will have to be handled through a different method because we'll have to verify it here before it goes to tech support. But the most common ones that you'll use are Mss name correction, date of birth correction, and duplicate EDU ID. In your description, if you have one student with one error, you can put the information directly into the description. But what I would expect to see most often is see attached spreadsheet. And that way the description isn't, they don't have to take a lot of time with that. They're going to go right to the attachment. So we're going to add an attachment on this ticket. And so it says no file chosen. I get to go choose my file. I am going to go straight to the place where I have the file already created. And that'll take me just a second. You won't be able to see this screen, I don't believe. But that's okay because it would be different for you anyway. And the one that I'm going to use is actually well, actually I'll use this one. This is the real file. Okay, this is a real file, but this is not a real student. So the file is Otis Corrections, and there is an Otis Corrections spreadsheet that I will be sending out to you as an Excel spreadsheet. If you look in your handouts for today's webinar, you can actually see what this looks like, but I had to upload it as a PDF, which will not be useful to you because you want to use that as an actual spreadsheet. So really quick, let me show you what this document that I've just completed looks like. So I've pulled this up on your screen. You should be able to see the Excel spreadsheet. You have the EDU ID in Mss. This is the one that exists in Mss for the student, and I've just used X's because obviously we're not using a real student. If your EDU ID in your school information system, PowerSchool, Schoolmaster, Infinite Campus, Skyward, whatever you have, if it is the same, you can just write same. So that is not the correction that we're making today. This student only has one EDU ID. There are no duplicates, and that's not what I'm working on correcting. The correct first last name, this is what exists on the student's birth certificate. In this case, again, a made-up student is Ortiz. Second last name is Gonzalez. This is the correct spelling. So I'm not saying, well, you're wrong. I'm just saying this is the correct spelling, but I've highlighted it yellow because this is the mistake that is in Mss data. So for this imaginary student, let's say Gonzalez was spelled with a final S, and it should be with a Z. I've highlighted that cell so that when that goes to the tech support people, they instantly know. They look at the MSIS EDU ID, they go look up the student, they correct the last name. I'm not asking them to make a ton of corrections, but I have verified that that is the only thing I'm asking for by putting it in my notes, that this is a second last name misspelled, and that's what I want them to correct. What I am going to do is put all the information in that is asked for. So I have the full last name, the first name, the middle name, the correct date of birth, and the correct QAD. All of that information is helpful for verification if there's any question, do I have the right student? So I would like all of the fields to be filled, and in this case it is just for one student, but you could have an entire page full of corrections. I would recommend, as soon as you find a mistake, you immediately go fill out this spreadsheet and create your Otis ticket. It's fast, it's easy, and just because our tech support people are wonderful but human, it would be easier for them to do one or two at a time as they come up, rather than have you send them a whole bunch of corrections. I do know at the beginning, if your MSIS data is particularly messy, you might have something that was going to be a little bit more, and that's fine. We want to get things corrected, but as you are checking MSIS, hopefully monthly at least, and verifying against your IC data that you're uploading as part of your district's upload, that you would be giving us that information on a regular basis and not waiting until there's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, but you saw that I have attached that spreadsheet. Just making sure there are no questions. Okay, it looks like everybody's still with me. So now what we do is we click on Create Ticket. And you might wonder, why does it have Create Ticket at the top and the bottom? And the answer is, I have no idea. But either one of them will work just fine. Maybe if people have a lot more information, they would need more than, would be easier to see it at the bottom or at the top. Okay. So now if you look, when I clicked on Create Ticket, now what I have is I have the existing ticket. It has a number, 5030. If you have your spreadsheet printed out, or even if you don't, even if you have it just saved electronically, what I would probably do is go back to my spreadsheet, and I would, oh, I forgot to mention on the spreadsheet, I did have a place for the date, so today is 11/5/15, district. I am the awesome district, so that's my district name. But what you might want to do is, after you create the ticket, you might want to just go up here and on this part of the spreadsheet or anywhere on the spreadsheet, put in your ticket number and save it. So if you look, our ticket number was 5030. So now I have it marked that with that file, the ticket number is 5030. So I know which ticket to refer back to in case I had more than one. And what it does is it shows me who initiated it, when, the ticket description, and it says our description was very brief, see attached spreadsheet. Now, I'm going to put a note in here to give to the people at tech support so that they know that this was just a test. So this is just for demonstration purposes, no action needed. And I actually asked tech support beforehand, before doing this webinar, I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, just put this in. So we're going to save those changes. So at any point when I have more information, I have had times where I put in a ticket and then figured out, oh, wait a sec, I think I was wrong on that. And I've gone back in and put in that note. And I'll show you how to get back into a ticket once you've left it, so that you can kind of see the ticket. So if they want to, the tech support people want to communicate with me, I get an email that says, this is an untenanted email, do not respond here. Please respond to ticket number, in this case it would be 5030. And that is the best way to communicate back and forth with tech support. This is a very secure site, and that means that you can have information on students, EDU IDs, last name, first name, all the things can be there. The reason I was so careful not to use a real student is because we're going to post this webinar to the public, and so therefore obviously I didn't want to do that. But when you're putting things into Otis, it is perfectly secure. You are fine to do that. So let's go out for a minute, and we are just going to go see how could we get back in and look at this ticket that we've created. I want to draw your attention to some tabs at the top. We can also go look at the original spreadsheet that we attached. That's another way that if you're not sure, oh shoot, which one was this one, which kids did I have on this Otis ticket, you can go look at your spreadsheet so you know exactly which students it was. So if you look here, here's our ticket. So we're going to get out and we're going to go back in so that you can see how to go look at your ticket. So I think this is a good place to pause and ask if there are any questions. Does anybody, we've created our first ticket, does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask about up to this point? And then we'll go look and see how we get back in to review how our ticket is doing. If you would like me to unmute you, just raise your hand over in your chat, and I would be most happy to do that if that would be easier than typing. Juanita, can you hear me? I've unmuted you now. Juanita, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. I just saw your hand was still raised. That was probably from earlier. I'm going to go ahead and remute you. Oh, you know what? Teresa had a great idea. She said, would I add a column for the ticket number? I could totally do that, or find for sure a place on there so that you can go back and put that ticket number in. That's a great idea. Anybody else? Questions, suggestions, ideas? Yes, very good question, Elsa. Otis is for creating a technology ticket in order to correct your Mss data. It does not allow you to correct it yourself. That is true. In fact, I don't have rights to go in and change things, these kinds of things in Mss. Those are done at the technology level. What this does is puts you a step closer so that when you turn in that ticket, you're not having to send it through a bunch of people, your regional or me or Kelly. It's going straight from you, the one who knows the data and is close to the data, directly to tech support to make that correction. All right, well, we're going to continue on, but I really like this question thing, so please feel free, type a question at any time. Don't wait for me to ask for one. And we are going to, I think we're going to be able to wrap this up in much less than the amount of time that we said. I scheduled it from 10 to 11, but we're just about done, so hang in there with me. And we're going to go back to, well, let me see a show of hands. How many people would like me to go all the way back out and start all over again to go look at the ticket? Or how many of you are comfortable with just having me go back to the home page for Otis and go from there? So raise your hands if you'd like to see me start from scratch to be able to go in and look at my ticket. Okay, I see quite a few hands of people who would like to see it from scratch, and I think that's useful. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend that I've come to work. It's another day. I've turned in a ticket, and I want to check and see if anything's been posted on it. Keep in mind, you will get an email anytime that the tech support people have asked you a question, need information from you, or when they close the ticket saying that they've completed it. So you will get an email notification anytime any action takes place on your tickets. But there are times when I want to go back and look at something. They've asked me for something, and I have spent some time doing whatever I needed to do, and now I need to come back and open my ticket and put that information in. So it is good to be able to go find a ticket once you've created it. So we are going to start from scratch. Okay, everything's gone. You see a pretty path in the woods. All right, so I'm going to go open the internet. And I'm going to see initially the wonderful www.mss sde.idaho.gov. This will be changing soon, so we may have to do this webinar again, but I'm sure that you will always see the IC on the main screen when you get there. So then I go to the IC portal. This is the same process I followed earlier, and it's on your step-by-step process on how to create your ticket. I come to the IC portal, and I've already logged in, so it's not going to ask me to log in again. And I'm going to go over here to Otis. I almost want to plug IDCI again, but I will refrain. And then it's going to ask me for my username and password, which I put in. And I know I'm going through this part quickly, but you can always rewind to the beginning of the video if you're watching this later to see how we did it at a much slower pace. I'm back to the friendly man at the keyboard, and I'm going to go on the left-hand side. Last time we went to create a ticket. This time I'm going to go to my ticket. And you're going to see that I actually have quite a few tickets that are open right now, and I can see any ticket that's been closed within the last 5 days. So that's also useful if I'm not sure if that ticket's been closed. If it was a recent ticket, I can see it when I'm at that screen. Now, if let's say you're looking at this ticket and you're like, oh, wait a sec, that's not the ticket I wanted to look at, you can go back to my tickets and it will bring you right back to this list, or you can go even further back and you can go back to the friendly guy there at the keyboard. So I'm going to go back to my tickets. I'm going to go back to 5030, and I'm going to, look at that. Even though I've already said this is just for demonstration purposes, no action needed, John has responded, and that will show you just how quick they are. The EDU is coming through as XXXXX. Can you provide the actual EDU ID? So that's how he would communicate with you. If there was something wrong with your spreadsheet, he would send you that message. Now, in my email, there will be an email that says that I have received from, in fact, I can pull it up so I can tell you what it would say. Maybe I can't. I have a lot of screens open on my desk. Okay, it doesn't look like it's come through yet. It will come through very soon. But anyway, it will tell me that there is a note, please go read information on ticket 5030. And so the email, you don't respond to the email. It doesn't go to a person. It's just a notification to go to Otis so you can look and see what's needed. So I will respond and say, thank you for being part of our webinar. Okay, and you can see I've typed that in there, but it is not going to go to him unless I click Save. So you will see a bright yellow bar that says, warning, you have unsaved changes. If you see that and you get busy and click away and then close your internet and you don't save it, it will not go through to the person in tech support, and so it will just kind of sit there hanging and waiting. Now, these give a certain timeline. I'm not sure what it is, but if something doesn't happen in a certain timeline, and I think it's slightly longer than what we said, the 3 to 5 days is the standard. I believe if some action doesn't take place within a certain maybe 10 days, you will get a notification email, as will tech support, saying this deadline was not met, please follow up. So hopefully that will never happen, but if you do get that kind of an email, that is a reminder. It may be waiting for something on your part, and that's a good reminder to go in and double check and see if there's anything that you need to do. One further thing, okay, so that I'm going to stop that and say this is how you look at tickets, this is how you communicate, this is secure, so there are no problems with mentioning student names, EDU IDs, that's perfectly fine. Be sure that your spreadsheet is completely filled out so that they don't have to send you a lot of emails saying, wait a sec, this isn't a valid ID. I know most of you know this trick, but always when working with EDU IDs, you are safer to copy and paste. I would highly recommend if you're in Schoolmaster, PowerSchool, or your system, that you copy the EDU ID, you paste it directly into your spreadsheet so that they don't have to send you a little message that says, gosh, that's not a valid EDU ID, please verify your information. Speaking of accurate information, before I pause again for questions, I wanted to draw your attention back to the spreadsheet, I right now, if I go to view, I currently have this in page layout view so that I can actually see the header and the footer. What I did put at the bottom was a reminder to you to highlight the cells of elements that need correction. So obviously if there's 2 EDU IDs, then it needs correction, but I would still highlight those. And then if, as in this case, you have just one name that's got a misspelling, highlight that one. And I'll also draw your attention at the bottom. It says, I verified names and dates on the student's birth certificate, and it has a little place for your initials. We're going to do this on the honor system. Tech support is not going to verify that you put your initials there, but what we are doing is giving you the ability to directly tell tech support, you need to change this. Our data is correct. And so it's really important that the data that you're giving them is correct, because the data that's in MSys came from an original COE at some point. And so we'd like to assume that all of our original data on our COEs are correct. So if you think about it, you go out, if you're a liaison, you fill out a certificate of eligibility. You are extremely careful to be sure that the information on the certificate of eligibility is accurate. And I know many of you, and I thank you for it, are going out and asking parents for birth certificates to be sure that our preschoolers especially are getting that information put in correctly, because if they're a preschooler, the only information that we will have is from the certificate of eligibility. However, this is a time where another district, or even at a later time you, are going back to the MSys database and saying the COE was wrong. I guess it could also be saying there was a typo in data entry, but in a lot of ways what you're saying is the original COE that was filled out by a careful liaison, you or someone else, is incorrect, is inaccurate. So it's really important that we not create new errors in MSys. By giving you this direct access, what we're trying to do is make it easier for you to clean up your data, have really, and my goal is always perfect data. I love perfect data. It just makes me happy. But so what I'm asking you to say when you turn this in your head, mentally say to yourself, did I verify this information against a valid source of error-free data? So what that means is the birth certificate. And we know that our IC uploads are based on information that are put in all by human beings, i.e. secretaries and registrars, so in schools. So if you verify with them that's off the birth certificate, you call the registrar and you say, hi, I'm looking at a student, a migrant student, and it looks to me like we may have a data problem, and so could you verify the spelling of the student's last name? I have Gonzalez ends with a Z. I'm noticing in Power School it has Gonzalez ends with an S. Could you check the birth certificate if you don't happen to be in that school? By bringing them into the process, if the mistake is in the school's records, which does happen occasionally because we are very careful on our COEs, and so oftentimes they are correct. I would say most of the time they're correct, but sometimes the school system has something in there that is not accurate, and by asking that person to verify the birth certificate with you, if you give them that phone call, then they will have a process on their end to initiate a correction that will go the other direction through the IC process, which those kinds of corrections already happen in your district. So if we're correcting MSys because MSys needs correcting, that's what this ticket process is for. If it turns out that MSys is correct, then you don't need a notice ticket if there's a discrepancy and it's through IC that the discrepancy is where the error is, then that process is already something that your district knows how to handle, and that would go probably from your secretary or registrar through whatever process they have in place for making corrections. Corrections do happen, and sometimes we have students that are adopted. They have name changes, legal name changes, those kinds of things. If they need to be corrected, we will correct MSys through this process with Otis, and the district has a method in place for correcting IC so that we can make sure that our data is always the same. All right, so I'm going to open it back up for questions. I'm going to put everybody's hands down, so if you would like for me to unmute you, you can just put your hand up and I will go through, find your name, and unmute you. If you would like, you could type a question either in the chat box or in the question area. And it looks like there are a couple of questions. So I am going to go look at those before I take new questions. Oh, and somebody says you just answered my question. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go up to Teresa asked, is this form kept with our record-keeping binder, or where should it be stored? That is a really good question. I would say absolutely yes. The nice thing about your record-keeping binder for liaisons is that it is divided on a monthly basis. So I would just stick it with maybe right behind the to-do list or near the calendar for that month, if the liaison is the one who's doing it. If you are a director who's doing this, you might want to just have a folder where you keep your Mss corrections for Otis ticket spreadsheets. That's what I named it. That's kind of a long name, where you might keep them there. You might also give a copy of those to that correction sheet to the liaison to keep in their binder, because hopefully the director and the liaisons are both going in and out of Mss, and they would then know, oh, I don't need to worry about this one that I know is wrong, because I've had students where the last name was wrong, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't I do a correction on that? So good communication, and it's fine if you keep it in your log or in a separate folder, but it is a good idea to keep them. I would also mark them off when they're done. So when you get that notification that this ticket has been closed, that the matter was resolved, then you might just draw a line through it or say completed and the date, write that on there so that if you are looking back later, you don't have to ask yourself, wait a minute, did that get done? I can't remember. I better go open Mss. That way you'll know it was taken care of. Next question. And this was the one that Elsa said I'd answered. It had to do with what if you do not get a confirmation email within the 5-day period. Usually you will. Sometimes you'll get it so quick it will make your head spin. But if you don't, if there is a mechanism to make sure that if it goes too long, the system will email you and tech support saying, hey, wait a sec, this ticket's hanging out there, isn't done, needs to get done. Yeah, and you can always go look anytime. So you can go into your My Tickets and just look and see which tickets you have open and which ones are closed. Oh, great question, Gloria. Okay, should we correct just the current ones for this school year, or can we still correct the ones from previous years? Correct everything, absolutely everything. If they're in there, if they're active, if you can see them, and they have a wrong date of birth or a wrong name, wrong spelling of a name, let's get it right. Let's just have beautiful, clean, perfect data. Is the new updated Mss correction sheet on the state website? It will be, hopefully, by the end of today. Christina will help me with that. I don't know how to do that yet. So I will, you need it as an Excel spreadsheet. So I will definitely get that put into a place where you can get to it. The other thing that had occurred to me is that I may also just email all 3 handouts out to all the migrant staff, liaisons, and directors, so you'll just have all 3 of them there in your email, because sometimes that's easier to refer back to. And I'll also take out my sample pretend students so that you won't have that cluttering up your form. Okay, more questions. I see a hand up. Abby, I am going to unmute you here for a sec. Abby, can you hear me? I have unmuted you. Go ahead and speak. Okay, I'm not hearing you, so maybe, I'm not sure. If you need me to unmute you again, just let me know. All right, looks like we have one more question. Is there a deadline for correcting the errors? Really, this is going to be for many of you as you start the process. If you have quite a lot of accumulated errors, it's going to take some time. And so what I'd like you to do is just work your way diligently through it. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 corrections, let's get them done. The quicker the better, and get them fixed. If it turns out, a couple of years ago, I started working through my database when I was in a district. My initial one had 83 name corrections. So if you are in that situation, I hope you're not, but if you are, if you have a lot, then what I would do is maybe work on it for an hour here and an hour there, fill up a page, turn those in, and then start the process again. Not try and do, if it seems like there are a lot of corrections to be done, maybe not try and do them all in one sitting, although you may just be a rip the Band-Aid off quick person and say, hey, I'm going to sit down and do this till it's done and turn them all in. That is fine too. There isn't a specific deadline, but it would be helpful if people start working their way through the process so that we just get our data nice and clean. The other thing is we upload to M6 once a week, and so the longer the errors stay in M6, the longer the errors are going to stay in M6, and the more likely it is that we're going to create duplicates and problems in the national database, which we don't want to do. So there is some urgency to it, but at the same time, I do not want this process of cleanup to impact your ability to be out there recruiting families. That is still your top priority. So don't let this be something that takes all your time. All right, some more questions. Yay. Oh, okay, it looks like the rest of them were people mostly with comments saying, yes, please email the handouts. I can do that the minute we're done. So you'll be able to have the spreadsheet as a spreadsheet. The other handout, the quick one-page cheat sheet, if you wanted to, you could print that back to back with the process, the dealing with duplicates sheet. That one actually takes you all the way back to the beginning of how you identify students that you even need to do this process with. And that goes through the identify, verify, and notify. And what we talked about today was just the notify, and that's where you create your LS ticket. So you might want to just print those out back to back and keep them somewhere handy. The Excel spreadsheet you'll want to be able to use and save. When you save them, let me ask you for a really big favor. Save them with your district name in the file name somewhere. I've noticed on end-of-year reports, a lot of them come back to me saved as copy of end-of-year report, and then when I open it, a lot of them didn't have the district name. So if I save that and somebody forgot, and this form has a place for you to put the district name in the header, but depending on how comfortable you are in Excel, you might not even see the header. So if your district name doesn't appear somewhere in this form, and if it also doesn't appear in the name of the file, that might make it a little bit harder for follow-up. So I would say anytime you send me anything, whether it's through the secure site where I know you're putting it in your actual folder, but once it's out of the folder, it would be very helpful for Otis tickets, for secure site data, to always include your district name or district number. So I know some districts, you know, if you want to say SD93, I'll know what that means. Or if you want to just say, I think that's Bonneville. If you want to just say Bonneville, that's fine too. So that would be one extra piece. All right, so if there are no more questions, oh, you're very welcome. Somebody said thank you for the webinar. And I will tell you now that I'm at the end of it and I can breathe. This was my first webinar, and I'm super excited that I've made it to the end without fainting. So thank you very much for coming. And this will be archived so that if you have the beginning part is where it's got a lot more information, like how to step by step. So if you need to review that at a later time as you walk yourself through it, anything you don't use, you lose, and I definitely know how that is. So this will be archived so you can look at it later. All right, somebody did just ask the question, how can I watch the webinar again? If it's posted to it should be posted in the, actually, let me show you where it will be. Close that. Okay, so if you are at the state website, the sde.idaho.gov, and you go to programs, you will see all of the programs, all the lovely things that we do, and I don't know why this keeps scrolling itself back up, but that's okay. You go to Migrant Education, and you go to Resources and Links, you will see Idaho Migrant Education Program Webinars. So the way I did that is I went to Programs, I went to Title I-C Migrant, and then when I got to that page, I went to Resources and Links. And if you look, this is really good, the 2015 Fall State Migrant Training, every document I handed you, all of those many handouts are right here, including the PFS worksheet as an Excel spreadsheet. And then it'll also say Program Webinars, and you can click on it there. And I believe when you click on it there, it will just open in a browser, and you would see it as a video.
They would have to register. They have to put in information.
Okay, so it will ask you for some information. So if you do get to this point, you find the webinar, and you do get stuck trying to see it, give me a call. As always, you can call here, and Kelly and I are always, and Christina, we're always happy to help. So if you get stuck, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we'll give you a hand. All right, thank you so much, and thanks for all the nice comments of people saying good job, because, phew, I made it to the end. All right, have a wonderful day and a great weekend.